Welcome, Serena. Serena is an online community expert and founder of Good Community. Serena helps purpose-driven organizations to build ethical and effective online communities where safety and support go hand in hand. With 17 years of experience, Serena has a deep expertise in community strategy, moderation, online safety, and team well-being. In 2021, she founded Good Community, offering strategic and tactical insights, training, and speaking services. An internationally recognized expert, Serena provides tactical advice and empathetic insights needed to build safe, successful, and impactful digital spaces. Good morning, good afternoon, Serena. How are you
Hi
doing?
there.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. Just excited and running. We've just begun the last segment of the loop, and then we've had Lisa lot, which was amazing, and now we've got you. So
Oh,
really,
fantastic. So, am I the first European speaker then, Anjum?
you're the second one.
The second one? Oh, okay. Well, happy to take the baton on. Great. Okay. Lovely. So, would you like me to make a start?
Yes, you can begin. It's all yours.
Lovely. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming along this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, depending where you are in the world. So today I'm going to be talking about going beyond the ban hammer and making the case for pro-social moderation. So let's get into it. So I'm Serena. You may have seen me on the slides before, on the screen before, maybe not, but I've been building communities since 2008. I've got over a decade of experience in building and moderating health and non-profit communities, leading teams and operating large active online spaces. During my career, I've received training in communications and community and other things, including empathic communication, safeguarding vulnerable people, and supporting people in crisis, with qualifications in counselling and mental health first aid. And in 2021, I founded Good Community so that I could move into the work of consulting and advising. So the sort of work I do is training community teams, provide strategic advice, helping organisations ultimately build ethical, effective online spaces where safety and support go hand in hand. And as part of that work, I teach pro-social moderation to other people. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So before we head into the talk, I actually want to know, what's the weirdest or worst response you've had as a community moderator? So while we're waiting for your responses to come in the chat, I'm going to share my story. As for me, I've been called a despot. I've been accused of censorship. I've been told there was a curse on me. I've actually also experienced harassment as a result of my work. And I think those of us who've been moderating and building communities for a while, we know the joy of being likened to a dictator or being misrepresented as the enemy of free speech. And actually, the cartoon you see on the screen at the moment, I saw on Reddit, and I'm sure it resonates with anybody who has moderated or led moderation teams. We spend time cleaning up and caring for our communities, only to be ignored, misunderstood, or attacked. I get it. You are not alone. So, yes, digital police has come in as one of the examples of the weirdest or worst response that we can have as a moderator. And there's definitely others that can come up. The free speech one, Lorraine says, absolutely. Yeah, Sophia, you're right on the digital police. Yeah, I remember someone being called worse than Mugabe, who I'd worked with, which I thought was a very interesting thing. Oh, being reported to yourself. Yeah, Lorraine, yeah. For doing your job. That's the thing as well, when you're being reported for actually doing your job. Absolutely, it's classic stuff. So we know this sort of work, it can be really hard. And in fact, it can be some of the toughest part of building online communities. So I'm going to move on through the talk, but feel free to share any more. It's a safe space, folks. So feel free to share any of the other pain of moderation in the chat. So the thing is, We moderators have a bad reputation as knee-jerk, power-hungry tyrants who are wielding banhammers and looking for their next strike. Moderation equals dictatorship, as Julian says in the chat. But do the critics have a point? Because I've seen patterns of bad moderation, nothing more than comment management, black and white rules, hard line approaches, and people who think AI tools can do all the work. And if we look at Meta's AI moderation over on Threads, you could get banned for using the word cracker because it can sometimes be used as a racial slur. One word, no context, and you're out. I've seen moderation training that teaches people how to follow and enforce rules, but nothing else. Here's the problem. If the only tool you have is a hammer, after a while, you'll see every problem as a nail. So in this talk, we're going to discover the problem with punitive moderation, clarify the myths and misunderstandings about prosocial moderation, explore the principles of prosocial moderation, understand how to make the shift to prosocial moderation, and learn simple changes that we can all make. But what do we mean by punitive moderation? Now, punitive, it means intended as a punishment or costs so high they're difficult to pay. Punitive moderation leads with punishment. It's often arbitrary, it offers little dialogue, and it rarely gives second chances. It's simplistic, which is why we see it in moderation training and resources, especially not the good stuff. We follow rules, we make no exceptions, we don't engage, and we hit moderation controls like we're playing some fevered game. Heavy-handed punitive approaches damage community culture and they cause genuine harm. Surely this isn't what we want. After all, none of us are perfect, right? I know I'm not. So when you've moderated for a while, you're going to see how punitive moderation causes harm. I'm going to tell you about two people to give you an example. So I'm going to tell you about Mick and Jen from when I worked at Alzheimer's Society UK. Now, this is not their real names, by the way. So Mick has frontotemporal dementia. He leads an active life, but dementia affects his inhibitions. So on good days, he'll manage well, but on bad days, he'll get angry, swear, and struggle to follow rules or manage his behaviour. Jen cares for a child and a parent, and has developed an alcohol dependency as a coping mechanism for her responsibilities. When news stories about sexual abuse emerged, those stories led her to relive childhood trauma. It changed how she used the community in the evenings. She became angry and she occasionally got into conflict with others. What impact would punitive moderation have had on people like Mick and Jen? What do you think? Feel free to share in the chat what you think. The thing is, I knew that traditional moderation and traditional moderation functions and the usual way that we teach moderation would punish them for circumstances beyond their control, excluding them from vital support. So we took a gentler approach, what I now know as prosocial moderation. And I think there are probably many of us who are practicing a form of prosocial moderation and don't know that's what we're doing. Now, you may not see people like Mick and Jen in your community, but you may see people who make mistakes or face difficult events. Their stories show that checklists and punitive moderation doesn't work. So we really do need to redesign and rethink moderation for everyone. So there are several problems with the punitive moderation approach. Let's list a few of them. It's too simplistic, it lacks nuance, it doesn't account for situations, and it can harm vulnerable people. The consequences are that moderators go into punish mode. This leads to backlash and complaints. The culture becomes cautious or harsh, and it sets an unhelpful precedent for how you treat the community. No one wants to be part of a community like this. We need a new approach. So before I make the case for prosocial moderation, I'm going to explain what prosocial means. So prosocial means intended to help or benefit another person or group. It also means promoting behaviour that benefits others or society. So when we think about the differences of this when compared to punitive moderation, as Lorraine says in the chat, the problem with punitive moderation is it doesn't consider the whole user. And we can see with prosocial that it's a very different approach. So it's time to reframe moderation as a pro-social practice. But first, I think we need to clear up some myths and misunderstandings. Pro-social moderation isn't about avoiding moderation and neglecting community safety. We still moderate effectively and take action, but we do it thoughtfully and contextually. It's not about taking the easy way or being too lax or lenient. We give chances and we create dialogue without neglecting community safety. We moderate with purpose. We consider context and we maintain the balance between support and safety. Everything starts with mindset change, whatever it is, but particularly when we're thinking about these moderation shifts from punitive to prosocial. The problem is punitive moderation deals with problems. Prosocial moderation deals with people. Punitive moderation follows linear processes like 3 strikes. But prosocial moderation takes a contextual approach with dialogue before action. Punitive moderation is seeing the rule breaks, but prosocial moderation is considering the honest mistakes first. Now, punitive moderation is about hardline policing. Prosocial moderation balances support and safety, where people get second chances and opportunities to learn. So when we shift to prosocial moderation, we need to think about how we align with our community, because that's the most important thing. Whatever we're doing with community, make sure your policies, your processes, all the models that you're using are aligning with your community, why it exists, its purposes, etc. So when we're shifting to prosocial moderation, we need to think about 3 things: community culture, moderator roles, and user needs. So firstly, your community culture. It should be welcoming, with on-topic content, constructive discussion, and supportive user behaviour. With prosocial moderation, we moderate to maintain community culture, not with panic, but with purpose. Secondly, moderator roles. We release moderators from the checkbox and give them prosocial roles. Moderators wear many hats, welcoming new members, offering support and signposting, keeping the peace during conflict, representing the community, modelling tone, containing harm by enforcing rules. Enforcement is just one hat. We need to give them the whole dressing up box. And thirdly, we think about user needs. Our community members joined for constructive reasons: support, skill improvement, problem solving. They need to feel welcomed, seen, and safe. Your community members might live with illness, pain, or trauma that could affect their behaviour and decision making. They need opportunities to learn from honest mistakes, and they deserve fair treatment. Prosocial moderation treats them as people with goals and needs, not just posts on a screen. So how do we put prosocial moderation into practice? We balance support and safety through 3 gears: empathise, educate, and enforce. So with empathise, we shift from the me perspective to look at the person and their context, their history, their situation, their circumstances. And we communicate with receiver orientation, considering how messages land. Then we shift to educate. We don't assume community members have our knowledge. We clarify, signpost, provide information, and we explain why the rules exist when we moderate. The aim is to help people to learn how to use the community. and then the shift to enforce. With prosocial moderation, we can combine enforcing with empathy and education. We assess risk and enforce when the issues are serious, when there's a clear safety risk, or when patterns of unhelpful behaviour exist. Here we can see how the three shifts help us to do prosocial moderation in a flexible and nuanced way. So, you might be wondering about the traditional functions of moderation and how does prosocial moderation line up with that? Well, actually, I think it does align with the three traditional functions of moderation that I call communicate, clarify, and contain, because ultimately that's all we're really doing as moderators. We're either communicating, clarifying, or containing. So we communicate empathetically, considering the perspective, situation, and feelings with a warmer and supportive tone. We clarify myths and misunderstandings to educate with a neutral and concise tone. And we contain risk and harm by enforcing rules to protect the community by using a firmer and directive tone when needed. So here we can see those three C's, the traditional moderation functions, they do align with the three E's of prosocial moderation. So prosocial moderation gives us a more flexible way and a more supportive and people-focused way to do those traditional moderation things. But why should we bother? Why bother with moderation when the three strikes and the banhammers are easier? We moderate this way because we want healthy communities. The purpose is creating and maintaining positive culture where people feel welcomed, they receive second chances for mistakes, and they trust that moderators will handle serious safety issues. This means that community members trust and respect moderators because they're not just enforcers. They welcome, help, educate, support, and when needed, take action. Prosocial moderation is effective and human. It fosters trust in healthy communities where people feel safe and they want to learn. So how can we make simple shifts to help move to prosocial moderation without overwhelming our teams? Let's start with making small changes to our moderation models. Now, your moderation model is various different things, but here's some of the things it can include. So your internal policies should emphasize your moderation purpose and demonstrate the balance of safety and support with appropriate goals. Your community-facing rules should explain what the rules are and why they exist, describe the full moderator role, and share the overall process. And your moderator resources need to be workable and flexible, explaining the enforcement options, the different role aspects, and providing simple to use tools. Next, we help our moderators ease into prosocial moderation through training, resources, and support. Training should go beyond the traditional moderation functions. We lead moderator huddles or work with prosocial experts like me. Learn empathic communication, learn how to educate our communities and how to enforce rules in a more nuanced way. Then we make iterative changes to our resources over time, ensuring templates for moderation, signposting and support reflect your shift to a more prosocial approach. And because prosocial moderation involves more dialogue, support is vital. We implement supportive debriefs, foster peer support culture, and encourage the team to prioritise their well-being. Moving to prosocial moderation takes time, but it's worth it. Compare punitive and prosocial again. With prosocial moderation, we move from punishment to support, and from checkbox moderation to fostering healthy culture and encouraging positive behaviour. Moderators aren't vindictive killjoys. We're the welcoming face, we're the helpful guide, the go-to person, and the protectors of our communities. Let's be proud of moderation. It's vital work, making online spaces safe and supportive. So here's a quick summary of what we've learned today. Punitive moderation is problematic. Prosocial moderation uses purpose to build healthier communities. Moderation should align with your goals and member needs. Prosocial moderation is flexible with gear shifts. Empathise, educate and enforce. And it's possible to move to prosocial models with simple changes, amending our policy and equipping our people. So thanks for listening. The slides are going to be available on request. You can get them from me or from the event organisers. I'd love your thoughts on this talk, so please visit my website to contact me, find my social links and read my community blog. And if you'd like to develop your skills further, I am developing a global open learning programme with ready-to-go training topics on moderation, communication, safety and wellbeing. You can register your interest using the QR code on the screen, or you can contact me via my website for more details. Thanks everybody. So I'm just going to do my quick bio slide there. So that's who I am and what I do, and I'll pop this back on the screen now. Okay, thanks folks.
Thank you, Serena. Super insightful session. A lot of takeaways. I have a question as well. So before my question, let's pop in and see the Q&A. We've got Julian with a question. How can you shift the model from punitive to prosocial in an established community?
Okay, so there's a few different components to this, shifting that model from punitive to prosocial. If you've got an established community, it depends whether or not you've got an established moderation team as well. And so what I would do in that case would be to start with your moderators and to start by having a discussion with them about the issues that can come up with moderation, because you'll probably find with your mods, they're going to be experiencing a number of the frustrations that we talked about earlier in terms of a more punitive way of moderating. So I think actually if you have that discussion with them and walk them through the different processes and changes and opportunities that prosocial moderation presents, I think you'll find the majority of people will find it a more flexible model. The thing with resistance is people don't like change, and a lot of the time what we've got to do is show them the benefits of that change. And like the talk mentions earlier, there are gradual ways you can make that shift. So I think the important thing is not to kind of foist it on them straight away, but actually make those gradual changes and bring them with you over time. And the same with members. I think with most members, they're going to appreciate a more supportive, more people-centered approach. So it's just a case of bringing people with you and use change management techniques in order to do so. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Julian's come back. I think it's a continuation. How do you ensure that your moderators do not engage in problematic behaviors while trying to educate your community? Biases, for example, that can create negative perception of the moderating team.
Yes, and that's a tricky one. I think a lot of the time that comes down to how we train and support our mods, and what sort of work we do into training and supporting them, and just making sure that people will agree with the processes that we put in place for moderation. So giving people those templates to help with prosocial moderation, giving them some training and some support to shift. And then once you've established those things, reiterating that this is the way we need to do it going forward. And then when you're looking at change, people behaving in ways, moderating in ways that you wouldn't expect or you wouldn't like, ultimately it's looking at how you can re-educate them. It will get to the point sometimes where you might have a power struggle with your moderators. Ultimately, you're the boss. So it's about you maintaining that authority. And sometimes it's time to bring more moderators into the team and say goodbye to the ones that won't follow the processes. Sometimes we do need to let go of some moderators that won't moderate in the ways that we expect. That's a performance management issue.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think I had a similar overlapping question as well. I just want to know how do you train moderators to balance empathy with the consistency when you're, and trying to enforce the community guidelines?
So how do we train them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I do is maybe give them some examples. Yeah, so a lot of the training that I do, so I have different training different training courses that I'll do with moderation teams. A lot of the time I'll start with kind of the how and why of moderation. So just helping people to kind of see the benefits and how we do it. But using examples is going to really help with that. A lot of the time what we're doing is, if this situation happened, we've got a punitive or a prosocial choice. Which one would be better for the member? And a lot of the time your moderators are going to see, actually, if I put myself in the member's shoes, the whole punitive approach, I'm not going to like that. Whereas actually the prosocial approach, you can still moderate and edit and ban and things. You just do it in a more supportive way. So it's about giving them those options and giving them the stories or case studies, or working with people like me, and that will help people to make that shift.
Okay, we have one last question before we close.
Sure.
How do you feel about using the term moderator over another term that may sound more approachable? Have you seen the title you use to make a difference?
It can do. And I think a lot of the time it's about how you, like I mentioned earlier, how you describe what moderators do. So you can do it two ways. You can keep the moderator title, but you change in the community facing rules and your policy and things, you change the description of what the moderators do. So as part of their work, they may enforce rules, but they're also welcoming people and providing information and support and, helping clarify, etc. So changing the description of the role can help. Or you might find shifting if the brand of moderator in your community has become so tarnished, shifting to something like community champion, or community guide can sometimes be a slightly friendlier way of saying. But as long as the description of what they do is still consistent in you're explaining to members who these people are and what they do on the community, that's ultimately the most important thing.
Yes. Okay, Serena, thank you so much. That was a lovely session and we had a lot of insights. We take leave now, and then thank you for joining in. Thank you, everyone.